following is a paid program. Advice and opinions expressed during the program are solely that of Klodowski Real Estate, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Welcome in, everybody, to Taking Care of Business featuring Klodowski Real Estate. I'm here with Chris Klodowski. Chris, how you doing this evening?
I'm great.
This evening, today. I saw you last evening.
It's been a long time period.
It's just all rolled into one. I want to welcome you into the show, and I guess I want to start off immediately by calling you out for how much you are a part of the community, because I saw you out at one of the fundraising activities last night, and you weren't just there. You weren't just, shaking hands and handing out business cards or anything like
Kissing
that.
babies.
Right. But you were bidding on auction items. It was you and the rest of the Klodowski team, and you guys really kind of make it a point to be a part of these things.
For sure, because this is the community that we work and live in, where we make our income from, so it's only right that we're putting back into that very same community and supporting the organizations and the nonprofits and all the things that make our community so great, because they're all full circle.
And I'm going to put it out there right now. There may have been some talk last night about you wearing some sort of flooring at the gala. I think it was a very nice poncho. It looked warm.
For the listening world, I had a poncho on, but my son was Adam was referring to it as a rug.
Yeah, he was being a little bit extra last night, but that's okay. That's okay. But of course, we don't bring you on here to talk about your activity at a gala and what you wear, although you always dress very nicely.
Thank you.
We bring you in to talk about real estate.
Well, before we get to real estate, I also wanted to say to you and all of the Good Karma team, equally, you guys are amazing. I mean, you start like Wade, getting up at 4 a.m. to set up at the hospital for the radio show, and last night you are at Bayside at 9 o'clock at night from emceeing the event and the sporting events, and you guys are just everywhere, and for a small crew you cover so much. I can't imagine the hours and effort that goes into that, and you are a great asset to our community.
Well, thank you. And it does exemplify why being local is great, whether it be local radio, local real estate. It's nice when those people are the same people you're going to see at the grocery store, you're going to see them at the bank, you're going to see them wherever. And
Absolutely.
That's definitely huge. Let's let everybody know if they want to get a hold of you guys to start with. Where can they find you guys online, on social media, your phone numbers, offices, all of that?
Sounds good. We'll start with the office phone number. It's 920-219-9212. I'm not so much into the Instagram and that, but we do have Instagram page, Snapchat. What else is out there?
Facebook.
Yes, Facebook. I'm familiar. We have a Facebook page, Klodowski Real Estate. We have a website, KlodowskiRealEstate.com, and Klodowski is KLODOWSKI. Our office phone, we trade off rotation. Our office is located on the north side of town when you come out on Highway 33, pretty much where the County Road B road hits 33 there. If you see one of our vehicles out there, obviously you're more than welcome to stop in. But with coming and going with listing appointments and showings, we are not in the office full time, obviously, because most of our work is done outside of the office. But yeah, welcome to stop in anytime when we're there. Say hi, questions, anything like that.
Yeah, and the real estate world, especially right now, is a very fast-paced world. Things are happening very quickly. So for you guys, if you were just trapped in the office, it'd be hard to sell homes.
Yep. You don't even know what a perfect lead-in is. Like, one of the things I was going to comment on was about properties being available, and I'd like to come in and say, okay, this is what we have on the market, what's available, but I don't have that. Like, we took three listings live last week. All 3 of them, as of yesterday, were under contract. So yeah, it is a fast-paced, fast-moving market still.
Yeah, it definitely moves fast. I know somebody, I just talked to him today about an offer they put in on the house, accepted. There's obviously contingencies with selling their current home and everything else, but the house has only been on the market, I think, for like 2 weeks. So things are still moving very, very quickly.
Yep, and we're coming into what is that spring. I always kind of have in my head, when I first got into real estate, that it's quieter in January, February, March. There's still stuff happening.
Nobody wants to move when it's cold and wintry and snowy.
But yeah, I'd be like, oh my gosh, why is it so quiet? And then I finally got in my head, it is about this time. It is really about today. I have the note in my head of tax day when kind of cracks open the spring real estate market. More things coming on the market, warm weather, lake sellers, waterfront sellers like to hit that spring market as the buyers ideally want to purchase to spend their summer holidays, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, living that lake life. And yeah, the weather improves. It's light out later. It's
Right.
warmer. Yeah.
I know a few people who every winter it seems like the winter ends and they're like, I can't do another one of these winters. I'm done. I'm done. Spring hits and they're like, all right, maybe I can stick around a little longer. So they'll be your winter sellers, I'm sure.
Sure.
So I wanted to dive into let's talk a little bit about buying a home right now because of how fast everything moves. You really can't dilly-dally when it comes to getting into the process and getting stuff together and doing all those things. You can't walk into it half ready to buy a house.
Correct. I mean, obviously, if it's something that or priced a little high, you have some time. But if you're just looking on like Zillow or Realtor, or even our website, any website that shows all of the local multiple listings, and you look at it and you think on it, maybe contact somebody to schedule a showing. Chances are, if it's priced right and it's a decent property, there are already going to be offers on the table. If you haven't, talked to somebody about lining up pre-approval letter, like what does your financing look like? Or if you maybe have a house to sell to make that purchase, to get all those ducks in a row to make your offer a strong competitive offer, chances are it's probably going to be gone before you get to it. Right. Even at the late dinner last night, someone had talked to me about they have some friends that are interested in a different house, but by the time they see it and go do a drive-by, it's already under contract. So, I mean, obviously, we would love to be your trusted real estate advisors, but just having someone, an agent that you've met with, done a buyer consultation, talked about what the process looks like, and your realtor, we're on your side. Bounce all the stuff off of us. If it's a matter of, okay, I have this house to sell, and I don't know that I want to buy something right now, but if it came up, I would. And you like to just chat about what that looks like now, maybe what you could do to get things ready or have an idea what you need to do, that's not a bad idea. I just met with someone yesterday that they're looking at in the next 1 to 2 years, they've purchased a secondary property up north that they're going to fully move to, but what they can be doing this year to get everything ready so when the time comes, their ducks are in a row and they can get the house on the market. Same with buying, having your ducks in a row. I'm sure over time it seems overwhelming, especially if you're going to sell a house. How do I do that? What if I need to do this to do that? We're happy to answer all those questions, even if it's just a sit down at your house, at our office, at a coffee shop, whatever you're most comfortable with, to discuss what that looks like, to give you ideas, because there are different ideas and options.
Right.
Say someone's afraid to sell because they know they're going to need a roof. Well, that's something we can talk about. Maybe getting an estimate for a roof, listing your house and including in there that, okay, we'll get the new roof put on prior to closing. So that gets all lined up once you have an accepted offer to get put on, but you wait till your buyers deliver their loan commitment so everything is solid. You get that roof put on a week before closing, and then at closing, out of your proceeds, the roofing contractor can be paid. Right. It's not something where you have to come up with that in advance of. We're happy to talk it all out because there's a lot of moving parts sometimes.
And a lot of weird nuances like that where there could be tiny little agreements here, there, whatever, to make that closing go through and make it happen that can be beneficial to the buyer because it gets those actions moving forward, and very beneficial to the seller because they maybe can make things happen to make that property even more attractive, without having to invest thousands and put themselves in massive amounts of debt to do it.
Right. I mean, especially if you don't have it in the meantime to put forth, there's usually some options. Everything we talk about is confidential, so if someone has some financial constraints that wouldn't allow them to do that out of pocket at this time, we talk about all of that stuff. And like I said, it's confidential. We're not sharing that with anybody else. In the same regard, someone that is maybe potentially looking at getting close to a foreclosure point, happy to have a confidential conversation about what that looks like, and if we could assist with that. I mean, sometimes people are too upside down in their property, that maybe they are better off letting the house go into foreclosure, but at least have the consultation to to find out in advance. Because if you can walk away, I mean, if you're looking at foreclosure and you could walk away with $10,000, $30,000 in your pocket and not get that ding on your credit,
Right.
that would behoove someone to do that.
Right, and I do know a couple of people who, in other states in the Midwest have looked at their property value over the last couple of years and said, okay, with the market where it's at, the value of my home has exceeded what I paid
Yeah.
for it. If we were looking to upgrade or downsize or do whatever, in one case, all their kids except one has moved on and out of the house. They haven't had the home for very long. They moved into it like 6-7 years ago. But they've already got so much equity because of the housing value
Right,
changing.
property values in 6-7 years. I mean, it's crazy.
Right. So they're like, well, we could sell it, and with what we have left over, we could almost pay off a smaller, downsized home.
Right.
I mean, for some people, it's a beautiful situation. Mm-hmm. Not for everybody,
Not
though.
for everybody, yeah. I mean, people say like, "Oh, my house, what it's worth, and da-da-da, what I could get for it." Well, if you still need a place to live, it's not your time to sell.
Right. And we know housing, paying for house payments and everything, they can sometimes be very much more attractive than rent. Sometimes with where interest rates are at, it might not be a good idea to jump
Right.
into a new loan or anything at
Right.
this time. But that's part of that whole consultation, that conversation.
Yes, it's huge because, I mean, we are not financial advisors, but people have financial advisors to be respectful of their money. In the same regard, you want to make your wisest financial choices when it comes to buying and selling a house too, because most of the time it is our largest investment. I mean, I'm not buying a yacht or anything. So yeah,
Right.
house is as good as it's going to get.
Now, I know there's got to be a checklist of things that you look at a buyer that comes in and sits down with you, and that you can say, hey, you should really have these things kind of figured out before we seriously start putting offers in on homes. Be it financing lined up, down payments, committed, know what your wants are
Yep,
for a home,
yep.
things like that. Do you guys hand them a physical checklist, or is it you guys just sit down and kind of talk through it?
We have a checklist that we talk through. Even if it's a first-time home buyer, not factoring in like a home sale contingency or options, even if you have a home sale, like a bridge loan or some things that can be done, that we talk through just to kind of get the toe in the water on everything. We don't expect anybody to hold on to all that information, but it's stuff we'll bring up again then when it comes time to write an offer. I know when I bought my first house, I guess I don't recall going through an offer. I just recall kind of like the sign here after we had talked about the things. So then when the realtor was like, okay, I need this amount of earnest money. Are they going to cash that check? Like,
Right.
I mean, like,
What happens to that? Yeah.
so when it's good to be prepared to know, like, yes, you're going to put down earnest money. It is technically kind of goes down to your down payment, but it's held in the meantime. It's money you don't have access to. To have a home inspection, what the cost of that is. If you wanted to have radon testing, what the cost of that is. So you can truly be prepared. So say you get an accepted offer and you have to fork all this out, and all of a sudden you move into your house and you have $0 left to put curtains on the windows. Yeah, you want to be prepared.
Right. And there are a lot of little expenses along the way that people might not think about.
Yeah.
I know when we moved into our house, immediately after moving in, my wife's like, oh, there are no window treatments, and we came from an apartment. Well, now we're out looking at fabric because she wanted to make her own curtains. Now we're doing this. And it's like, oh, those little things add up. Even the cost of moving can be an expense people don't think about.
Yes. If you have someone moving you, yes, that's an expense.
We all love a pickup truck and a case of beer, but sometimes it
And
needs a
pizza,
little
don't
more.
forget the pizza.
Right, and pizza.
I like I said, when I bought my first house, and I got in there, I mean, luckily some of the windows had blinds on them, but buying curtain rods,
Right.
buying curtains, I mean, it's something little, or even a house that doesn't have the stove and the refrigerator in it.
Right.
If you're tight on moving in your first couple of months mortgage payment to come up with the money for a stove and refrigerator, something to think about, something we like to point out.
Right.
I had a buyer recently looking at an updated house, a flipped house, really liked it, excited about it. I'm like, okay, well, let's factor in, it needs a stove, it needs a refrigerator, there's a space for a dishwasher, that's not there.
Right.
There isn't a washer and dryer. A great space in the new bathroom for it, but that's still an expense to come up with. And even if
Right.
you buy it on, Marketplace or a buy-sell trade page, it's still money that you need to factor in. And and if he said yes, I still want to make an offer, I would have wrote that offer. But we like to help people think about things you wouldn't think about on your own. Because I was that person, like, oh, this is so cute. Like, look at this, look at this. None of that stuff entered my head at that time.
Right, and it's definitely good to think about those things ahead of time. I know Wade Bates is replacing a stove oven combo in his house.
I've heard.
And it's like a 3-week window for it to get delivered. So that's 3 weeks of him, eating frozen pizzas.
Yeah,
from
no
his
Easter ham for
pizzazz,
him.
right? And that's something you have to think about, those time things. I know for us, another thing, I completely spaced out the fact that we were buying a house with a lawn.
A lawnmower.
Coming from luckily, reached out to family and, got a little 24-inch lawnmower, and it took forever. But that's what you got to do sometimes.
Same. My old neighbor had a lawn boy that he donated to my cause that my dad refurbished up. So
there you go. I like it. I like it. I want to talk a little bit about property types, because you start seeing houses that are, you look on MLS, you're looking places, and it'll say like, okay, this was a foreclosed home. This is a good flip house, or this is a handyman special, or this is move-in ready. There's a lot of different little descriptive terms for the different types of properties. Can you run through kind of what some of those mean to help people a little bit?
This is a little bit of that's a tough one. So as realtors, we don't put those titles on them. The third-party websites put that on there. It's pretty common to get contacted semi-regularly by someone looking for a foreclosure property, because there's sites out there that show pre-foreclosure, foreclosure. I am not aware of a way to actively buy a property in the process of foreclosure, unless, for example, it is a local bank that holds the mortgage to it, and you could go into that bank and say, I see this property is being foreclosed on. I am interested in potentially purchasing it. If it's one of the big nationwide lenders, good luck.
Right.
Generally, the foreclosure process can be anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half, 2 years. What happens, the first step after all of the foreclosure things are filed, the property goes, quote unquote, for sale on the Dodge County Sheriff's steps. Generally, the mortgage lender is there also, and if the property is not bid up high enough to the number that the mortgage lender wants to satisfy most of that mortgage, they get it back. Once the mortgage holder is now the owner of that property, they in turn use a real estate firm to list that property just like you would list your house. Right. It sounds exciting to get a good deal or something like that, but it is pretty hard to purchase a pre-foreclosure or foreclosure property. Even buying on like the sheriff's sale, you don't have the opportunity to go in and inspect this home, like even a visual, like you are buying whatever's there.
All right.
So if someone's poured Quikrete down the toilet, you don't know those things. Also, the sheriff's office does not have to do a title search on that property. So I know someone that had bid on a property, quote unquote, won the auction in a sheriff's sale. And when he went to the bank to get his money, they just did a quick search. Well, there was a second mortgage on this property. So he thought he was buying it for X amount, but if he was actually going to buy it, he was also responsible for this second mortgage from another mortgage holder to get a clear title. So he ended up letting his 10% down go away because he was money ahead by doing that. So my suggestion is to be a well-versed buyer in that situation, because realtors aren't involved in that situation. You are a solo person there bidding on a property.
Right. Now, of course, if it does go back to the original lender and the lender reaches out to a realtor and says, all right, let's sell this home, then at that point it's like a normal process.
Yep.
Okay. I do know how scary homes purchased on foreclosure can be. I was living in Vegas when the market bubble popped, and you hear horror stories of people just destroying everything in the home. And people who buy in foreclosure standing on the front lawn, pay their money and get the keys and walk into who knows what. So,
I mean, that's a lot of the Tarek and Christina, the HGTV people.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. They seem to love that for the drama of TV, but not so great if you're the buyer.
And you do inherit when you walk in, like, whatever's in there.
Right.
Even if it's a person.
Hopefully that's not the case. And obviously, I think about things like quote unquote like handyman specials, probably houses that need a little bit of work. A lot of that you can see in photos.
Right.
You can see that. I know you guys on your website, you do a great job to get a lot of great photos. I've even seen a couple of the drone fly-through videos recently.
Dakota Monroe, he does a great job of that. Super fun. Abby had one on Northern Shores in Fox Lake. And yeah, the way he went out like through the sunroom.
Yeah, and like loops back.
Yes, myself, like I loved that.
I watched that like 2 or 3 times. So that was pretty good. So they're fairly accurate. And it's a great way to get a look at the property, which is awesome. So I got to praise you guys on that.
I will say, like with the photos, when I show properties, sometimes they made this look much better in photos. We don't do anything special to make it look better in photos.
Right.
Just using a good photographer, like good pictures, it's important to go and take a look. And in the same regard, if the pictures aren't good or there aren't many, also a good idea still to go take a look, because if the person selling the property did not represent it well, you might be pleasantly surprised when you get there, like, oh, this is far better than I expected it to be.
Right. And it can be tough, too. I've seen images where it's when the house is empty, there's nothing in it, and it's hard to picture how big is that space, how big is that room, and then you go to another listing and you can see the dining room, and it's got a table with 8 chairs around it. You're like, that's got to be a good-sized dining room.
Right.
So it's always good to be able to walk around those. You mentioned a little bit about when you walk into a home, you're inheriting whatever's there. I want to talk about this property clean out. This is something you had brought up. This is something that's kind of new to our area.
Yep. And so we kind of offer an a la carte of options. If someone just wants to put their house on the market, they want a few like maybe recommendations for this or that, or there's someone that really wants recommendations, like you should maybe paint this turquoise dining room,
right,
just to tone it down. I know that sounds interesting, but there are people, 99% of our home buyers start online looking at photos. So the photos are important, and looking at a turquoise dining room, as easy as it is to paint, there are people who'll be like, did you see that turquoise? It's just paint.
Right.
But in the interest of doing the best job selling your property, we're going to make those recommendations. You have the option to say, I'm not interested. Excuse me. Or an option of even staging a property. If someone, we have a staging shed, storage unit,
right,
lamps, some end tables, some blow-up beds, a few little things we can bring in. But then you can go a step up to actually having, we work with a couple of companies where they bring in all the furniture, pictures, furniture, rugs, lamps, all of those things. Just like clean out. I just had a property last week that went on the market. The lady had moved to a nursing home, no children, she has some nephews, but obviously they have their own careers and lives, and they're not in this area. So her property needed to be cleaned out. Well, the family had gone in and taken what they wanted, and there's a company that we hired that from the day they came in to give the estimate to having it fully cleaned out, and really there's a couple days in there that it was waiting on me because I was on vacation to get the contract signed. Brought in the dumpsters, got everything out of it. They also work with, what is that warehouse out in 151, like where you pay the entrance fee and you get to carry out whatever you can carry for that price?
Yeah.
Okay, so they work with them, so things that are still have life left to them, they come and pick up. So I love that it's just not all going into a dumpster, that usable things are kept in circulation for someone who's interested. Then clean the property. They have different levels of cleaning. If you wanted the windows done, they also have the option of if you want it painted or some flooring, like they do some of the work depending upon the level of how prepped you want the property to be to go on the market.
Well, there you go. That sounds like
super
a great
excited
option.
about it.
I know the one thing that has me going, okay, we can never move, besides my wife saying she won't leave unless it's in a body bag, is, which I'm trying to figure out how to arrange that without killing her, trust me. It's
your poor wife.
I don't want to have to scrub the floors. I don't want to have to go in and make sure all the baseboards are ding free and painted and look nice or whatever. And I know it's something that helps. It improves the value, improves the look. But it's like I also don't want to do it because I don't want to be on my knees. And I don't want to do this. Knowing that there are options that yes, may cost a little bit of money, but at the same time could have a good return for you.
Yeah, and even though we hold salespeople licensing, we're not salespeople.
Right.
We just give you your options, and if you're like, no, I think I just want to leave it, okay, fine, we're good with that. But if you want to potentially, invest, have a little budget to make your property the most ready for sale, we're good at that too. We're happy to meet you wherever you're at.
That's awesome. Do you want to remind people this is a paid program, and advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of Klodowski Real Estate, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands. Let's talk a little bit about availability. I know you said you didn't have any houses to tell us about right now.
I would love to come in with a list of, okay, here's what we have. In the 53916, so that's, town of Westford, Calamus, town of Beaver Dam, city of Beaver Dam, there are 11 properties. 11 single-family homes currently available. In all of Dodge County itself, there are 71 properties available. So there's a couple at a couple of auction properties where the list price starts out at $1, but they have a minimum of where they'll sell at up to $3.5 million. So there are some properties available, but it's still a seller's market. There's a little more inventory than last year at this time, but still a seller's market. And like I said, this is kind of the time where things crack open for that spring season. If you think about going on the market, even now, you figure 30 to 45 days. Well, school's out by then, and we're to Memorial Day, and it's a good time to start getting things ready. We have one coming up on Cousins Court in Beaver Dam. The photography's Friday, so that will go live this weekend. It is a 3-bedroom, 2 full, 2 half bath, 100 and some feet of frontage on Beaver Dam Lake, 3-car garage, and that'll be listed at $675. I know there's a couple other things in the works, but nothing that I can speak on per signed contract yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's I'm going to touch on that briefly. That's another thing that's really nice with being local and the way you guys do business. There's a process, there's a procedure, and you guys are confidential about the information you learn, and you don't go around blabbing about homes and addresses that aren't ready yet.
Right. Because that's shady.
Right.
until things are signed.
There's legal things that go along with all of that.
Yes.
Because you guys do go through a lot of training, you got a lot of certification, you got a lot of legal things you got to worry about. Because this is a business, this is your livelihood, but at the same time, it's a service you provide. And you got to keep all those ducks in a row.
Yeah, absolutely. We feel strongly about keeping the black and the white, and not having a gray area in between. Just because it is our name on the sign. It is a small community, and we like to never have a question of our integrity.
And we've talked before about how that could mean that sometimes you and Abby, or you and Adam, or Adam and Abby, whatever, could be on opposite sides of the same deal. One representing the buyer, the seller, whatever. And you're still doing individually in those cases what's best for the buyer, and what's best for the seller,
that
for whoever they're representing.
Correct. Yep.
Right, which could be tough, I'm sure.
That just like with any other transaction, you get one buyer that says, "No, I'm not doing this," and the seller says, "Well, yes, I'm not fixing this," and no different than any other. Even though same office, they have both their own representation, and there's things as the representative of a seller or a buyer that you keep confidential, and you're not allowed to share.
Right. I somehow in my brain I just picture the two of them when it's all said and done, like shooting Nerf guns back and forth at each other to solve any issues that came up there.
I'll be honest, I feel bad. We always have an office meeting Saturday mornings at 7 because that's what works best for all three of us. And there are tenants in the apartment next to our office, and I feel bad for them because there's a lot of laughing, and we're not quiet always at 7 o'clock on a Saturday. And
That's okay.
I feel very bad for those folks.
Nothing wrong with that. I actually love the high energy you guys have. All three of you were out at the gala last night, and
It was a good time.
everybody was doing very, very well. And I did see at one point Abby had stolen somebody's baby and was walking around with it.
Oh yeah, because both the mom and the dad were working the event,
Right.
And the mom had the little girl like strapped in her back and said, "Oh, give me that baby."
Which I love, which again shows just how much you guys are ingrained in the community. We use the term local real estate advisors for a reason, obviously. I hate the term salesperson.
Same.
That is definitely big. Let's flip. We talked a little bit about being prepared to buy. Let's talk a little bit more about being prepared to sell. Right now, I know people are, some people are really wanting to sell, and they look at their home value and they see, maybe they got their tax statement or their home value appraisal, and they see a number on there, and they start getting really, really excited. But they come to you and they say, "Hey, Chris, look at this number. I think I can get a lot for my home." What kind of conversations are you having to have with people at that point?
What we start out with is usually going to someone's home and meeting with them, walking through so we can get a feel for the layout and the space, and asking things like the age of the roof, the age of the furnace, the age of the air conditioner. Usually it's obvious, but you can ask, like, have the windows been updated? You can see if they've done updates. Just having conversations to get details from them about their house. And also it's fun to know, like, what they love about their house, like something that you may not think of, that when it comes time to market, that somebody else may be like, "Oh, that is fantastic. I love that too." Before having dogs, a fenced-in backyard went to
Right.
been here or there for me, but little kids in a fenced-in backyard where you can open the door and just let them out, wow, how great is that?
Right.
Just a meeting to get together and then putting together what we call a market analysis, where we take your information, we look up what the square footage is on your property, and then compare it to similar properties, usually in the same community. You might need to go a stretch bond, like say it's a duplex being listed in Juneau. You might need to expand out like to the Horicon, even come into Beaver Dam area, because there's not a lot of duplexes sold in the last 6 to 12 months in Juneau.
Right.
And generally when an appraiser comes through, they like the 6-month window, but when you get to the 12-month window, that's the max. They will go looking at comparables. To show you what we think your property's worth based on what other properties have sold for. Every now and then you get someone that wants to price a touch higher. If it's too high, we may say like, no, we think you might be better off working with somebody else then.
Right.
If it's reasonable, but like then having things in place of, okay, if you don't have an accepted offer in 2 weeks, this is going to be our recommended price reduction because the market's telling you that it's priced too high. It needs to come down.
That makes a lot of sense. And there is a bit of a reality check when it comes to that. Here's what your home is valued at, and here's what we can actually sell it for.
Sure.
Because the value is based, those appraisals initially, when they do the assessments, tax assessments,
Yeah.
that's based on just certain hard numbers, like here's how many bedrooms, here's how many bathrooms, here's how many square feet,
Yeah.
Here's how many extra rooms, here's the size of the lot, hard numbers that are the same regardless of really the condition of the home.
Right. If the appraiser has not been through your house lately, they just generally do a standard increase
Right.
To bring that number up. But say there's many people that have finished their basement and they didn't pull permits for that. So you go to a house and the assessor has, it has 1,800 square feet. Well, there's 600 finished square feet in the basement. Lower level finished square feet has a lesser value per square foot, obviously, than your above grade square
Right.
footage, but it still adds value. So that amount may not be right. Or I really just had one this past week that I listed on Hickory Point Road. The assessor had higher square footage because the walkout basement had previously been finished, but it was a secondary home and a pipe froze a winter and a half ago and flooded the basement. So there's no longer any square footage there. So if you potentially looked at, like one of the nationwide
Right.
property value sites, it wouldn't have been accurate because there was no longer that bedroom and that family room downstairs.
And I mean, that's just how quick things can change too, which is why having those conversations, sitting down, going through, looking at all those things, market evaluations are so key.
Yeah.
Because I can throw out any number I want for what I want for my house.
Right, right.
Accuracy is
Yeah,
sometimes key.
I'd like $1 million for my house, but yeah, we
Right.
get that.
And of course, we should point out your job is not to try and lowball a house price for people. Like obviously,
no.
you want to do the best you can for the seller, just like you would if they were a buyer.
Right.
And sometimes, in some cases, they could be a seller and a buyer at the same time for you.
Correct.
I love that. I think about, there's certain professions that as a kid I'd hear like, oh, they're just shady. They're just trying to make a buck. And lawyers was one, real estate bankers. Those were like some of the top three.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case. They get a bad rap, but you guys seem to do an all right job.
As within any profession,
Right.
you have the people. And honestly, when I was first getting my real estate license, my other half, that's how he felt. He's like, oh, you're going to what?
Right.
And was not a fan at all. And I was like, why? Oh, because they're greasy. Well, now we're those greasy folk.
Right.
And in, like I said, any profession. But yes, in working with some people, there are people like that in that profession. I mean, hands down.
Right.
Even I think so.
And I mean, you're right. That could be any profession out there, but you guys do a really good job with that, which is awesome. Which is why I hear out of 3 years, 2 years in a running, you guys have been voted for.
I started Klodowski Real Estate. I think right around now would be the anniversary, actually. The 2 full years we had, and really that just speaks to like our gratitude for the community. Like, we'd love to be part of this community. We want to be your trusted real estate advisor because we care.
Right.
Yeah, if you work with us or you work with someone else, make sure they actually have your best interest at hand. Sometimes you'll get somebody to come through and with an open house with a buyer, and they'll write an offer for their buyer, and they'll never ask like, how old is the roof, or some of these things. And like a roof age is pretty important. Because when a buyer goes to get their homeowner's insurance when they're purchasing a property, especially with all of the insurance claims across our country in the last few years, most insurance companies, they don't fancy insuring a roof that's 25 years old.
Right.
So yeah, questions that you want to ask along the way to get the best information for your buyers.
I did want to ask, because with how fast the market is going and how fast homes are coming out of the market and going off the market, are the old-fashioned traditional open houses still happening as often? I think about, as a kid, my parents took me to a couple of them where people are just walking in and walking through the house, looking at
Sure.
stuff, plate of cookies in the sort of thing. They tell the family, like, hey, go do something for the day. We're going to be kind of
Sure.
letting everybody through the house.
I don't feel like as much. We are still avid open house hosters, excuse me. There are some agents in the area that still do that. Depends upon the comfort level of the seller also, because there are some sellers that feel very strongly like they don't want their neighbors just being
Right.
looky-loos and coming through to check out their house.
Just in case for some reason they change their mind or whatever.
Right.
And now they know where all of our stuff is. And
Right.
yeah, people can be judgy.
And I recently had a couple in Horicon. The wife had contacted me. Her husband had obviously unexpectedly a stroke, and he was still in a facility getting some rehab, but they were going to be moving north to be closer to their daughter. So it was a pretty timely thing, but she contacted me the week that he was coming home on the weekend. So we planned, was it two open houses for that one in the hopes of obviously get the buyers through and get them some good competitive offers, but so they were less inconvenienced her having to get him out of the house for every single private showing. This way, most of the folks got in the open house time, so they left, for 1 2-hour window and another 2-hour window, and then there were just a couple of private showings to make life a little easier on them. But yeah, we're big fans of the open house.
When it comes to getting in some competitive offers, like you were saying, is there a standard timeline for responding to offers before they kind of expire?
It depends on the listing contract. Sometimes people will review offers as received, meaning as soon as you get an offer, you're going to present that to your seller. The buyer puts on their offer what is called a binding acceptance date, which means and sometimes a time as well. That means this offer is good through this date and time if you are going to accept it as it is. We like to be respectful and at least communicate if the seller is going to do a counter offer or something to let them know, okay, we're not accepting by this time, but we're going to get this back to you. Sometimes then I recently had a property, again listed last week on County Road CC, 4 acres, pole shed, but the property needs some love. And the lady is in a nursing home, so she's not electronically signing any documents. I need to physically go to her with the offers. So we just put in the listing contract that no offers would be presented before Monday. So there was an open house and there were showings for 4 days, so everyone had an opportunity to get in there. And then on Monday, I went to her to present the offers. So when you have it in your listing contract, you're not presenting anything till Monday. That would be where people write accordingly that we expect not to hear back until end of day on Monday. Something exciting came on the market, priced right, and you had a buyer that was very interested, and you got in there for the first 8 a.m. showing, had an offer into the listing agent by 10 a.m. If I were writing it, I would put binding acceptance the same day. Like,
Right.
we want to hear back today before you get 3 or 4 more other offers, because then at that point it's in your buyer's best interest to do it that way.
Now, when you have an instance where you're bringing, several offers to somebody at once, do you bring them every offer that was offered?
Yep.
So even,
Yep.
they look at all of them.
I do an Excel spreadsheet, have all of the offers. We walk through all of the details, and what we do with this lady and I did was we ruled out the ones that were a no. Like there were 3 that were, okay, we'll set these aside, we'll come back to these. So we ruled out the no's, got all those signed off for rejection, and then we reviewed the pluses and minuses of the 3 that were left, eliminated another one, then got down to the 2, and she made her decision. So yeah, all offers have to be presented, and that's license law.
Right. So that way, as a seller or as a buyer, just because you don't necessarily think that your offer is going to be the one that's accepted, it was at least seen.
Yes, and in referencing that shady thing, yes, an agent who writes an offer likes to be assured that their offer was presented.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. When you're writing an offer, is there any stock behind? I've heard where people will sometimes ask to have like a note added to the offer, like, oh, well, the patriarch of the family is a veteran, or, we're moving in because we have, young kids and we love the school district.
Yeah.
Or, is there any actual stock to putting that sort of stuff on the offer, or does that not necessarily play in? Like when you're presenting that spreadsheet, do you have a little box for, those things?
So there is a box on the offer where you write in what documents are attached. So there's one called an addendum B that is a well, septic, and water inspection on a rural property. If the agent that writes the offer includes a letter to the seller and they write on that line that the letter is included, I present that with the offer. If not, I just present the offers as they are, and then after the fact, share the letter with the seller. There's much less of that. I had 3 years ago or so, 4 years ago, it was regular to see
Right.
seller, we call them seller love letters. Much less of that now. In the ones I mentioned that we just had the 7 offers on, there was one with a handwritten letter in there. And it also depends on your seller. Say it's a nephew that's inherited their aunt's place. Well, quite frankly, they're going to go for their best terms and price because they have more than likely no emotional attachment to that house. They're just getting
Right.
it sold. Where it's the person that has maybe raised their family in that house, and you submit a letter, well, then there might be some feels in there.
Right.
But then also there's the debate over the years of discrimination. That, okay, someone writes in they have a family. Well, that's a protected class, and are we now causing a
Right.
problem with that? What I usually, again, it's up to the seller on that, but identical offers, and one's $10,000 more, and the other one has a love letter that hits you in the feels, and they debate on that. I say, would you give this other family $10,000 of your money? No. Okay, so may I just propose, why are you considering, because the letter, taking $10,000 off of your
Right.
proceeds from your sale? And if they say that because they want to, great, sign it,
Right.
we'll accept that offer.
Now, are you and I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but I want to get it out there and have it said. Are you allowed, if the seller looks at you and says, were they nice people or did they seem like jerks? Are you able to be like, no, they were absolute jerks, or
So a lot of times when we get an offer, if another agent has written it, even if it's Abby or Adam that's working with a buyer and they read an offer on a listing I likely do not know if they were jerks
Right.
or not. That would, if it was something that would factor into them being a potential successful buyer or not, that would be what we call an adverse fact that we could share.
Right.
Otherwise, no.
There you go. Keep it business.
Yes.
That's important. I think a lot about people who have kind of a fear of missing out. That's a big thing now. People talk about from everything from television shows to I can't buy this car because a new car's coming out next year. It's gonna be better. Do you think that plays into housing at all? Do you think people are afraid to put offers in because they're afraid that next week a better house is going to come available?
Sometimes, yes. Yep, that is something we talk about in our buyer consultation. 80-20, 90-10 rule that I'm a firm believer you should have a little fuzzy in your belly when you're buying a house to begin with, being excited about it. But even when someone builds a brand new house and they have you over to show you how cool it is, they will still say, oh, I would do this differently if I had it to do over. I don't feel like any house is 100%. I mean, even my house, I'd be like, oh, if I could do this over, I would do it like this. Like my kitchen island has the raised up breakfast bar.
Oh, right.
I would ixnay that to make it more of an open feel and just make it a big island instead.
Right there with you.
Little things like that. So kind of keeping that in mind. We touched on that in our buyer consultation, that there isn't a one, maybe there is. I think the likelihood of having a 100% perfect home is very rare. It's a unicorn.
I've known people who've built brand new homes and they're still not 100% perfect, because sometimes it's just, well, you can't have a toilet in the middle of the living room so you can watch football and never leave,
Well, you might be surprised. No.
I occasionally stumble upon the on be it Facebook or TikTok the home building like fails, where it's the door has to be cut around the toilet so you can open it.
I've shown one of
like
those.
that.
Yep, right here in Beaver Dam.
It's amazing that that's a real thing, but it is a real thing. Unfortunately, Chris, we always run out of time. This is such a great show. I love having you on. I want to give you a moment again to let everybody know the phone number to get a hold of you guys, the website. How do they reach out?
It's Klodowski Real Estate, KLODOWSKI. We have a website, KlodowskiRealEstate.com. Our office phone number is 920-219-9212, and we rotate that between the three of us. We also have personal cell phone numbers, so you're welcome to reach out that
Who's
way
got
as
the
well.
phone this week?
Abby. Abby has the phone this week. So if you call this week, you're reaching Abby. Website, we have a Facebook page. It's kind of fun to follow. We put some fun stuff on there. We do giveaways periodically. Oh, which reminds me, I did not draw for the golf passes yesterday. Darn it. Got some when I get back to the office. Some other social media sites. Really the easiest to connect with us is just a phone call to the office. No matter who you're looking for, if you reach one of the other ones of us and you don't have our cell phone number, we'll connect you with them. And we're just grateful to be your trusted real estate advisor. Even if it's just questions, even if you said, we get this occasionally, semi-regularly actually, someone's selling to a family member and they just want to know the value of the property to give a good price. We're happy to come and do that. I'm like, oh, what do we owe you? Nothing. It's just part of the service. Like,
there you go.
Yeah.
You guys and your
Put
service.
good in the world and good comes back to you.
Well, I hope plenty of good comes back to you, Chris.
Right back at you. We very much enjoy you, Ninja.
Thank you. I enjoy you as well. This has been a paid program. The advice and opinions expressed on the program are solely that of Klodowski Real Estate, not necessarily WBEV or Good Karma Brands.